Let's look at the entrepreneurs, because I'm so keen about that. Even if we've said that not everyone will have to do business, quite understandable. But those who had ventured into it, into having their own businesses, starting from the scratch, and maybe were able to get soft loans from the government or the banks, how do you think they would go ahead to develop such businesses, given our peculiar environment? What kind of solution or advice would you want to give to such people?
We need to engage the microfinance business in this as well. Now, for my research as well, I think the base, the fundamental reason why microfinances have been set up is to be able to perhaps assist the commercial bank to be able to get closer to the grassroots, giving out loans to micro businesses and so on and so forth. But what I found out is they give out this money to all these guys to do businesses, but how can I put this? What they're actually expecting from these people is the return, okay, the interest they have to pay back. Now, if I'm a microfinance business and I'm going to borrow you money, why should I borrow you my money if I can't really understand that you are actually for that business? I mean, per se. The
person must be cut out for such a business.
Must be.
They have this natural flair, or shall I say a talent. Is that what you mean?
Oh, I mean, put that all together, because you see, that's what I said in the beginning, that some people have no business in doing business. Now, if I need to borrow you money to do business, you must be able to prove to me and have some fundamentals in place. For example,
what kind of fundamentals?
I'm going to ask for a business plan.
Okay.
The business plan, and that entails quite a lot of things like self-discipline and commitment, choosing a business name, business structure, understanding franchising, taxation. It's quite a lot of bunch of information. Now, if I don't have all this in place to convince me, I'm not going to borrow you my money. That's the reason why you find a lot of all these micro businesses going under, because they borrow our money to people that they can't really substantiate if they're actually meant for that business. Because if you can't prove to me you've gone through their lectures, their training, I mean, like independent economic empowerment and so on, there's a lot of training that you have to go through to understand, because if you go through some training, you're going to find out that I'm not going to do this business. It's not for me. You find out. It's like going to school to say you want to study microbiology, for example. If you get there, I mean, from your A-level, you will find out this is not for me. Then you could change course to social sciences or to do art subject. Similarly, if you undergo the training on some courses to become a self-employer, then you will find out if this is for me. Now, if you can go through that and pass that course, then if you come to me and you can prove to me that you can do this business, I will borrow you my money. So that means my money is safer to an extent as well. Not just everybody wants to do business. If you ask 1 million people today, they will all tell you, give me the money, I want to do business. But the fundamental of doing business is very critical. You need to understand what you're about to, the step you're about to take. If you don't understand why going into business, you see, in this country, for example, when you have a business, people just dip their hand into that business, spend the money anyhow because they believe this is my business, this is me. And that is totally wrong. If you have a business, you are a separate entity to your business. You are an employee of your business. So you pay yourself a salary like you pay others. If you don't do that and you just spend the money as if this is my business, I'm making money, I'm spending money, you will face the catastrophe in the future.
Okay, okay. Let's look at the issue of the unemployment rate and the issue of having to develop our human capital. Would you say that our inability to develop that aspect has led to high unemployment rates in the country?
Part of it, but part of the catalog of the issues are, I mean, you have a lot of employers who doesn't want to employ, or who are a little bit hesitant in employing additional personnel. Why is this happening? I mean, a lot of employers has fallen victim of unscrupulous candidates. Okay? Now, if you employ a candidate today, for example, and the person throws in their CV to you, the resume, and say, I have X, Y, Z experience, I've been working with X, Y, Z company, and so on and so forth. And based on that resume, you conduct an interview. If the person is a genius, can answer your question, you believe you got the right person, you employ the person. But eventually, maybe 1, 2, 3 months down the line, you find out that this person you've actually employed doesn't have the necessary experience that you're actually looking for. Then you sack this person.
Some companies, sorry to just come in there, some companies will give you some time lapse to say, okay, you're on probation.
Yeah.
6 months, for instance. Isn't there a way that company, that employer can determine if that person knows the job or not within 6 months?
Okay, if I'm the managing director of a company and I employ staff, that person doesn't work with me directly, for example.
You have people, managers who are there, who keep watch over other people and can assess them.
Of course.
And will say, okay, this person can do this, she can do that, she's not so good in this area, and this is a strength, there's an area of weakness. But
that is the area you should be able to identify from the onset, even before you employ the person. You see,
because if someone comes and pretends that he or she has some kind of qualifications, and you find out that at the end of the day, maybe a few months into being employed, the person seems not to be able to display such skills that she says she has or he has. So if you have a probation period, wouldn't that help?
It will help to an extent, but the point is, who is losing out? The employer loses out. So if I do that to 1, 2, 3, 4 within a year, and I've paid the salaries for 2, 3 months on probation, and that's happened to about 6 or more personnel, who is losing out? I am losing out. At the end of the year, when I look into my books and I say, look, I've lost this amount of money achieving nothing, I will be a little bit pessimistic to say, okay, I need to employ someone else.
So how can the employer know if that person is real or not?
That is the job that most what we call employment agencies need to do. Which is, I mean, in this country we have a large number of employment agencies, but to be honest with you, what they do is actually questionable, and the reason for that is because there's no regulation in place. The employment industry in this country is not regulated. Now, because of that, everybody does want to do that. They just get someone. If you just call an employment agency and say, I need an accountant, for example, there's some thorough check they're meant to do. There are some vetting process they're meant to do, profiling and so on and so forth, which gives you the confidence that if I employ this person that comes from this employment agency, I'm getting the right person. So now that task or risk lies on your shoulder as an employment company.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're meant to do a lot of work in there as well.
Now, you mentioned before, I hope that we have just a few more minutes before I let you go. You mentioned the fact that sometimes an employer tells you they don't train the staff. And could that be as a result of maybe they did not have the ability financial-wise to do that? Because if your business isn't growing and you're stuck somehow in a particular place, and you feel having to get or sending someone on training may be expensive for you to do.
Resources is one issue. Carelessness. I don't even care about the staff. You see, some companies believe if they train you as an employee and they spend money on you, that one day you're going to leave them. Which is definite. And go elsewhere. And forgetting the fact that it's a part of the contribution, because you're still going to benefit from that person before the person leaves anyway. And you can't keep that person for life in your company. It's going to go elsewhere. But it's what people need to begin to understand, that training a personnel that you have, obviously the person is going to leave at one point in time. But government needs to play a part in here. And enforcement has to be in place. That if you have more than, for example, more than 5 employees working with you, you must begin to train those staff.
So there must be a law.
There must be. Well, I think there is a law. I'm not too sure, but I think there's a law. But there must be an enforcement. Now there must be a national awareness and orientation as well, whereby people can actually call anonymous and say, right, we're about 5 here, we're about 10 here, but there's no training in the last 1 year or thereabouts, and that should be in place. So, like, if they have those agencies in place that actually monitors all those challenges, then of course all this problem will begin to dwindle and tackled.
Because the reason why I'm so curious about that, if you compel or mandate a company to train the staff, and they tell you they don't have the resources to do that,
is where,
what happens?
That was why I said earlier there should be an incentive. You see, the government, from the government, maybe in terms of tax rebate, if you train a number of employees, you will have this percentage of tax rebate. Maybe you will have a cash incentive, which is quite more attractive, cash incentive, and so on and so forth. And also, you must also, the government must also begin to encourage employers and say, right, okay, people don't have experience. Begin to employ and train them to work for you. Then we'll give you an incentive, and so on and so forth. That's some of the issues that the government is looking into as well.